What's going on? Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. Typically, we don't create content on holidays such as today, but the embargo lifted on this one. So welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now, simply to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name's Captain Nostalgia. I am a writer, podcaster, and the director of our film festival called Horrific Hope. We're now taking submissions for next year. Shorts, screenplays, features. Link is in the description below. And more information about who we are, what we do, our podcasts, more movie reviews like this, our Patreon, how to support us, and more, click the links in the description below. Today we're going to be talking about the movie On the Third Day, which you guys can stream exclusively on Shudder beginning this Thursday, July 7th. On the Third Day tells the story of a mother and a son who get into a accident and subsequently open up some supernatural doors which get a psychic involved. I will get into this plot, I promise. But that's On the Third Day in a nutshell, and crazy stuff happens. Where to begin with this one? I absolutely love films that feel big in scope, but they have to utilize their runtime just correctly to tell a blockbuster story in a truly tiny window is a thing of genius, and it takes a true talent in order to make that happen. All of that to draw you back to the plot of this movie and how difficult it is to explain without jumping into spoilers. I say all of that because this film, the story that it's trying to tell, feels very large and big in scope, and it never is able to truly kind of bring itself up to the scope of which it's telling. In which the story is told, first act is very told in this very linear fashion, but there are certain pieces missing, and then the second act is kind of like a recap of the first act, and you're starting to kind of piece in those things and kind of see how these two storylines that appear to be just absolutely individual of one another by themselves, how they slowly start to connect, and in the third act they crescendo and clash together. But it never really... But by the time that they do, you've lost your audience. This movie kind of reminds me of a film we reviewed earlier this year in Morgue. This one, though, was very straightforward and never tried to overcomplicate itself. And the reason why it worked so well was because it had such a smooth transition, simplicity. And that's far from the case when it comes to On the Third Day. The third act of this movie feels so convoluted because of how the story progresses in the second act, and it feels almost like Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, where it spends almost 80% of its film recounting the events that we've already seen. Kind of like that nerd logic where you're kind of like, oh, the joke is Blade Runner has improved 3.5 seconds to its runtime. It completely changes the movie, and that's what this movie feels like oftentimes. The acting in this movie, it's fine. It's nothing special. As much problems as I had with the story and the narrative of how everything gets laid out. The pacing, it's fine. It's nothing special. And even the practical effects of this movie, when the final force behind all of the events of this movie is actually unveiled. Spoiler alert, Morbius, that's all I'm going to say. It's Morbin time. When you watch this movie, you'll understand. And if you don't, once you watch the movie, I would love to tell you my theory about this movie. So please DM us on any of our social medias. You can find links for in the bio below. But Yeah, this movie's nothing special, and if anything else, it's pretty forgettable because when it does start to embrace some of its more supernatural elements, it just feels like parlor tricks that we've seen so many times before. I talked about this earlier this year when we did the Exorcism of God, that supernatural horror or religious horror is a special film, where you have films like The Exorcist or The Exorcism of Emily Rose, The Conjuring, Sinister, films like that that really stand out against cheap parlor tricks and actually scare the audience. And this film goes for those parlor tricks and doesn't scare the audience. It's a very dry, very boring, just very terrible, horrendous kind of experience as you're trudging through this film. So that leads me to my Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 1.5 out of 5. I think the practical effects are among one of the only redeeming qualities of this movie. I think it has a novel idea and it just has really terrible execution. I like the scope of this movie, but the potential never rises to that scope. Once again, you guys can stream this on Shudder beginning this Thursday, July 7th, if you guys would like to check it out. I would love to hear your thoughts. Tell me that you love this movie, because I love having conversations with people about their thoughts on movies, and maybe even bringing me to say, do I need to give this movie another chance? So let me know in the comments below once you guys have seen this movie. But it's time for our mental health moment, and if you guys are new to our content, mental health moment is where we take a theme of mental health from the film of which we were reviewing and talk about it for a few moments in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. This movie with the son and the mother, it tells the story of grief. So a large portion that I've left out of my narrative description is that the mother is basically, she gets disconnected from the son, and she's basically spending the entire movie through psychics, through supernatural means, in order to reconnect with her son. And though I've never been a parent myself and have no plans of being a parent myself, there are also just relationships that I have gone through, and I've had to either step away from them for my own personal reasons, or I've had to step away from them because they were just toxic to my mental health. And I really resonated with that, the mother figure in this movie, because of that. But whether you're talking about disconnecting from someone for personal reasons or toxicity reasons, the detox that comes out of that and mental health process is truly something that you need to make sure that you are having a viable community for. In the midst of all this, the events of the mother being separated from her son, she has her ex-husband by her, and you really kind of see how the events surrounding her son, surrounding this accident, but also at the same time having this separated and detached person from your life, someone that could probably potentially also be very toxic. You kind of get to see how all of the mixture of that is not good for her mental health and her recovery process. And likewise, I want to encourage anyone that's watching this, if you're going through grief or you just need it to disconnect yourself from someone for whatever reason, make sure that in the process of that disconnection and that grieving process as well, you are also connecting with someone that is going to be vital and important and also healthy for your own mental health. And as always, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, please check the links in our bios below to check out our mental health resource library. Once again, on the third day, hit Shudder July 7th exclusively. Happy 4th of July. Have a good day, guys.